Good evening, everyone. I am going to convene the Town of Dartmouth Conservation Commission uh, meetings, public hearings for Tuesday, February 25, 2025. It's now 7 p.m. This evening's meeting is being conducted remotely, and that's in accordance with law which Governor Healy signed back in March 29, 2023, which extended the hybrid remote meeting option to municipalities, and that will continue until the 31st of March 2025, unless there's some legislative changes in the future. The meeting is accessible, not just for viewing, but also for participation. If you wish to be heard, there's a raise your hand feature. We'd ask that you use that and you will be recognized. If that doesn't work, which it's possible it doesn't, then wave your hand and you will be recognized. Other than the times you are speaking, I would ask that you please mute your microphone so we don't get the ambient or background noises while other folks are trying to present. We do have, including myself, we have 5 of our commissioners, so we have more than a quorum. Will require 4 affirmative votes to take action this evening, so 4 out of the 5. And with that being said, we're going to move to our administrative items. The first is to approve the minutes of January 21, 2025. May I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
I have a second on the motion, please.
Second.
We have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
James?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. The second administrative item is the approval of the field trip reports of February 11, 2025. May I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
James?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. The third administrative item is to receive the minutes for February 11, 2025. May I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Seconded motion, roll call vote. Richard,
Yep. Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
James?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. We don't have any field trip reports for this evening, but we do have a number of public hearings. The first public hearing is a continued public hearing, DEP file 15-2757, NOI 2446. It's on the notice of intent from Anthony Capuano for PRM Auto Holdings LLC to construct the 39,129 plus or minus gross floor area square foot car dealership and an accessory detached car wash with associated utilities and parking storage area within the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland and land under waterways. That's applicable CMRs 310, 10.02, 10.54, 10.55, 10.56, and section 360-2. It's on land described as map 63, lot 12, otherwise known as 411 Fonts Corner Road. May I have a motion to waive the reading?
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
James?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. We have received by email a request by the applicant to withdraw the notice of intent without prejudice. I see no reason to deny it, but I would entertain any questions that any commissioner may have before we have a motion.
Would you like a brief narrative on why the request?
I don't think we need that, Mark. They're just
Okay.
asking for it.
Okay, okay,
Either we grant it or we don't.
yeah, okay. That's fine.
So I'll entertain a motion to grant the applicant's request to withdraw the notice of intent without prejudice.
So moved.
We have a second on that?
Second.
We have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
yes,
James?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion is unanimously granted, or approved, excuse me. Our second public hearing is a public hearing, DEP file 15-2766, NOI 24-54. It's on the notice of intent from Jeffrey and Suzanne Parker for a detached accessory apartment and upgraded subsurface sewage disposal system within land subject to coastal storm flowage. The applicable regulations are 310 CMR 10.02, 10.04, and section 360-2. It's on land described as map 90, lot 9. It's otherwise known as 16 Meadow Shores Road. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second.
We have a second on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Megan?
yes,
My vote is yes. I'm sorry, James?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. On behalf of the applicant, is there someone here this evening?
Mr. Chairman, in our brief conversation before, I failed to mention this also we received an email to request a withdrawal without prejudice on this one. This came in late Friday, and I directly forwarded separate from the packet the email from Alan Haru. So the applicant, through their agent, Haru Engineering, has requested a withdrawal without prejudice.
Okay. Any commissioner want to speak on this request? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to grant a withdrawal of this notice of intent without prejudice.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
yes,
James?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. The next two public hearings, the commentary will be from Eduardo on behalf of the staff. The first, it's public hearing file, DEP file 15-2772, NOI 25-5. It's on the notice of intent from a V Corp LLC to raise an existing residential dwelling and regrade areas within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland and inland bank. The applicable regulations are 310 CMR 10.02, 10.54, 10.55, and section 360-2. It's on land described as map 79, lot 36. It's otherwise known as 271 Flag Swamp Road. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second.
I have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
yes,
James?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Is there someone here this evening to represent the applicant?
Yes, Jamie Bissonette with Zenith Consulting Engineers.
Okay, you've got the floor.
Good evening. Again, Jamie Bissonette, Zenith Consulting Engineers. We have filed notice of intent with the Conservation Commission to raise an existing residential dwelling and construct a new dwelling. If you'd like, I can share my screen.
Yes, please, go right ahead.
Jamie, if I could make a comment, your voice is a little raspy. You might be fighting an illness. I'm noticing some of the commissioners are having a hard time hearing you. So
Oh.
just as an FYI,
I can speak up. I'm sorry about that.
if you can get closer to the mic, that might help.
Can everybody see my screen?
I can see your screen.
Excellent. All right. So the notice that we filed is to raise this existing residential structure and the associated driveway and for the most part the utilities that are within it, and tie into The new house will be located outside of the 100-foot buffer. Minimal work for the new dwelling will happen in the buffer, mostly the water line connection here. But as you can see, the limit of work does run in the back because we will be taking down this house and the work that's associated with it to loam, stabilize, and seed that area. The existing leaching field is going to be used. We're getting rid of the tank pump chamber combination system here and putting in a new tank that will be able to function by gravity. And we have a roof recharge system located in the front. And in accordance with the town's drainage policy, we have the construction entrance and we have details for deep watering on the plan set as well. I'm happy to try to answer any questions. And just as a note, the wetland resource areas are both located off-site. One is the pond here, and then there's another one that's an existing bog down in this vicinity.
Okay. Is that conclude your presentation?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Does any commissioner have any, well, before we do that, I'm going to ask Eduardo to please give us staff's comments on this application.
So as Jamie mentioned, the current structure over towards the south, I believe, is adjacent to some former cranberry bogs and an inland bank and pond. As Jamie mentioned, there's also plans to reconstruct a new building outside the buffer zone of both of those jurisdictional areas. And so having a chance to review the plans and site conditions on site, we're recommending a standard order of conditions for this.
Okay. Are there any additional conditions or just the standard order?
Just the standard order.
Okay. Does
Mr.
any-
Chairman, if I could add, that would be as per the sewage disposal system design plan dated February 6th, 2025.
Thank you. Does any commissioner have any questions, either of the applicant, applicant's professional, or Eduardo? I don't see any. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak on this notice of intent? I don't see any. So I would entertain at this point a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
James.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. I'll now entertain a motion to issue a standard order of conditions on the plan on file dated February 6, 2025.
So moved.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
James.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you, and take care of that throat.
Right.
Our fourth public hearing is a public hearing on DEP file 15-2773, NOI 25-4. It's on the notice of intent from Christian Farland, DBA Seaport Homes, CS, LLC, to construct a single-family dwelling with associated driveway, grading, and utilities within the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland on land described as map 79, lot 58-2. It's located on Flag Swamp Road. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second.
We have a second on the motion. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
James.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. And I can see there's a Farland Corp. So it looks like Nate, you're up.
Actually,
Oh,
Stevie,
Steve, you're gonna do it. Okay,
Nate's just observing.
Okay.
For the record, Stevie Cavallo of Farland Corp. If you'd like, I could share my screen to present the plan.
that would be great. I'd appreciate that.
Okay, can everyone see the plan?
I can see it.
Right. So, existing property actually now has an address of 408 Flag Swamp Road. It's located on the southwesterly side of Flag Swamp Road. Towards the southeasterly portion of the property, there's a wetland. This red line here is the wetland line. Within that wetland line is also a flood zone. Everything outside of this blue line, excuse me, is outside of the flood zone. I've highlighted the 25-foot buffer in this purple color, and then the 100-foot buffer in this yellow color. The green line represents the proposed erosion controls and limit of work. What we're proposing here is a single-family dwelling, 4 bedrooms. Driveway pretty much kept as far away from the wetland as we can. Associated grading around the structure. We've got a septic tank, which goes to a pump chamber and then to a leaching field well outside the 100-foot buffer. I'd be happy to answer any questions commission members may have.
Thank you very much, Stevie. Eduardo, I'd like to hear comments of staff to this notice of intent.
So much like the other one, we drove by the site, as the consultant mentioned. Much of the building is within the buffer zone, but we will still be recommending a standard order of conditions.
Okay, what was the date on the plan that was that we're acting upon? I can't read it that little fine there.
I believe January 24th,
Well,
2025.
Yeah,
No, there's a
revised.
revision. It's site plan dated January 31st, 2025.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Mark.
Okay, we have a recommendation from staff. Does any commissioner have any questions either of Stevie or of Eduardo? I don't see any. Is there anyone in the audience this evening who wants to be heard on this application? Again, I don't see anyone. I would entertain at this point a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion, roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
James?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Commissioners, I will entertain a motion to issue a standard order of conditions on the plan submitted and on file dated January 31st, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Megan. Megan?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Okay.
Now I can. I didn't hear
Okay.
you before. It might be my ears, not your voice. And James?
Yes.
My vote is yes as well. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Stevie.
Thank you.
We have our 5th public hearing, which is a public hearing on DEP file 15-2771, NOI 25-7. It's on the notice of intent from Glenn Lehman, care of Richard Rayum, to construct a garage and storage extension within land subject to coastal storm flowage. The applicable regulations 310 CMR 10.02, 10.04, and section 360-2. It's on land described as map 121 lot 7. That's otherwise known as number 1 Howland Avenue. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Megan, I didn't hear you.
Yes.
Am I the only one having a problem here?
No, I'm not hearing her either.
Okay. I saw your lips moving, so I knew you were saying something. Okay, James,
Yes.
and my vote is yes as well. That motion passes unanimously. We did receive a request from Prime Engineering by email to withdraw this notice of intent without prejudice. So unless any commissioner has a question as to why, I'll entertain a motion to withdraw, to allow the withdrawal of this NOI with prejudice, without prejudice, excuse me.
So moved, Mike.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
I heard you too there.
Okay, good.
James,
Yes.
my vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. We're moving on to page 2 of the agenda. Excuse me. At the top of the page, number 6 is a public hearing, DEP file 15-2774, NOI 25-8. It's on the notice of intent from Robert C. Chase, DBA Calduzio LLC. I'm probably butchering that, I'm sorry. To decommission the existing non-compliant cesspool serving the existing single-family home and making a new connection to municipal sewer within bordering land subject to flooding, the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland and inland bank, and within the 200-foot of riverfront area. The applicable regulations are 310 CMR 10.02, 10.04, 10.54, 10.55, 10.58, and section 360-2. It's on land described as map 150, lot 139, otherwise known as 65 Victoria Street. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
James.
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. On behalf of the applicant, Stevie, is it you again?
It is, for the record, Stevie Cavallo of Parlin Corp. Permission to share my screen again?
Yes, you have that.
Okay, can everyone see that?
I can. Thank you.
I'm gonna zoom in here a little bit. So as you can see, the site's on the west side of Victoria Street. On the west side of the property here actually is Buttonwood Brook. This blue line indicates top of bank of the inland bank. These red lines here indicate bordering vegetative wetland. As you can see, there's also one across the street here. This purple line is the 25-foot buffer, and then we added the 50-foot buffer here. In orange, the proposed work includes abandoning the existing cesspool, which actually has a concrete cover around it, and then a steel rimming cover. That's going to be abandoned per Title V, so pumped and filled with flowable fill. The existing structure currently has the building sewer, which comes out straight back. Water service comes from the road in the front. What DPW had done is they had provided a stub here indicated by this clean out. So what we're proposing to do, replumb, come out the back and around all of these are like concrete retaining walls. There's actually a landing in here, which goes down to basement grade. So running the pipe towards the front would prohibit access of that door. We're tying in, around, keeping all of the work outside of all of the proposed sewer service outside of 25 foot. The green line again indicates limit of work and proposed erosion controls. And that is about it. Be happy to answer any questions any commission member may have.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Stevie. Mark, comments, please, from staff on this application.
Yeah, this is a long, very narrow lot squeezed between Victoria Street and Buttonwood Brook. This is very close to the Dartmouth, New Bedford town line, just south of Allen Street. This particular site, as most of the parcels on the western side of Victoria Street, are fully encumbered by wetland jurisdiction due to the perennial stream, the Buttonwood Brook, and its associated riverfront area, 200 feet lateral from the top of bank. Buffer zones from the inland bank and bordering vegetated wetlands. The 100-foot buffer zone along with the riverfront area completely encompasses and encumbers the lot. There is an existing house on it. There have been improvements, no expansions of that house over the course of the past couple of years. There was a draft proposal to knock down and rebuild, but that never came to fruition. So what we're left with is a abandonment of an old cesspool, non-Title V compliant, within our jurisdiction, very close to a perennial stream, and tying into the existing sewer main. This is certainly a very appropriate project in that the sewer main exists, and it will be certainly a further protection of the wetlands and the down gradient stream. And just as a reminder, the Buzzards Bay Coalition is doing extensive studies on the Buttonwood Brook and relative to bacteria and nutrients. So this particular proposed project certainly fits in with their goals and objectives of relieving inputs of bacteria and nutrients to the Buttonwood Brook. Having said all that, staff is prepared to recommend the standard order of conditions as per the site plan dated February 6th, 2025.
Thank you, Mark. Does any commissioner have any questions either of Stevie or Mark? I don't see any. Is there anyone in the audience this evening wants to be heard on this application? Again, I'm not seeing anyone. So I will enter a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
James?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Commissioners, I'll now entertain a motion to issue a standard order of conditions on the plan which was filed and received by the Conservation Commission dated February 6, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Megan? I think that might be a yes. There we go. Yes. James?
Yes.
And my vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Our seventh public hearing, and we do have a file number for it. It's a public hearing on DEP file number 15-2777, NOI 25-6. It's on the notice of intent from Eddie Lopez for the demolition of an existing single-family dwelling and the construction of a new single-family dwelling within bordering land subject to flooding, the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland and inland bank, and within 200 feet of riverfront area. It's on land described as map 150, lot 137, otherwise known as 59 Victoria Street. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
The seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
James?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Do we have someone here this evening to represent the applicant, or the applicant, I guess?
Good evening. My name is Alphonse Coca with KBM Design Group. I am here, and then Mr. Lopez, the applicant, is here too. So I'll do the presentation.
Very good.
Can I share my screen?
Yes, you may.
Let me know if you guys can see my screen.
I can see it now.
Perfect. Again, my name is Alphonse Coca with KBN Design Group. So the applicant is proposing to demo an existing or demolish an existing building that is located within the 25-foot buffer and within the 100-foot riverfront area. The site is located at 59 Victoria Street. As you can see, in green right here is Button Brook. In red is the wetlands, the flagging area. In magenta is a 25-foot buffer zone. In the blue, in the light blue color is the floodway, the flood zone area, and then the yellow represents the 100-foot riverfront area. So the existing building is located right here within the flood zone and the inside the 20 and pretty much inside the 25-foot buffer zone. Our proposal would be to demolish the existing building, construct a new building outside the 25-foot buffer zone, outside the floodway, and the building will not have a foundation, will be pretty much at grade. It will utilize existing utilities. The water will be fed from a 3/4 inch water line. The sewer will be municipal sewer via gravity to the existing stub that exists right here. And as part of the improvements, we are proposing to plant 2 silver maple trees and 8 shrubs, 4 high bush blueberries, and then 4 sweet pepper bush shrubs. We are proposing to plant the disturbed area in the back where the existing building is with New England pollinator grass seed. The grading, the grades will not change, will remain the same, so there won't be any major grading changes in the area. One thing that this plan is missing, that I do apologize, but it wasn't picked up on the survey, and then when I was going through, I forgot to mention, is that there's an existing RV parked right here that's abandoned, and an existing Sunbeam Dread delivery truck from a long time ago that's abandoned. So the plan is to remove and dispose those vehicles from the area and then restore this area to existing conditions. Prior to removing the vehicles, we will siphon any fuel or antifreeze that's left on the vehicles so that to make sure there's no chemical spillage. We did do an on-site survey or walkthrough to double check underneath the vehicles to spot if there's any existing spills that had happened. We did not see anything. The applicant, Mr. Lopez, is not aware of any chemical or fuel spills from those vehicles. They just been sitting there. And otherwise, that would be the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much. Mark, I'd be interested to hear staff's comments on this request.
Well, 59 Victoria is 2 doors down from 65, so I won't go into the details on how the entire site falls within the conservation jurisdiction based on the wetlands and the perennial stream. Initially, I didn't think this was a terribly complex project given its size and the size of the lot, although I did note, given the tightness of this area, how proximal the jurisdictional wetland resources are to the proposed activity. several questions have arisen, and I did share them with Alphonse earlier today. And my question is, first of all, that Alphonse did note that the derelict vehicles are not shown on the plan. And I wanted to know what the soil quality underlying the two dilapidated vehicles that appear to have been stored on site for some time. Is the applicant aware of any releases to the down gradient wetlands or stream? Now, they claim that they inspected and they didn't see any staining. That does not quite settle with me, given the proximity and the types of soils we have in this area. The second question I had is, what is the status of the asbestos survey as required by Board of Health? There is a demo involved here, and Board of Health has indicated in their comments to me and on the portal that they need the results of an asbestos survey before they will sign off on this because of the demolition. Again, we're talking about asbestos, a hazardous material in very close proximity to the wetlands, the surface waters, and the groundwater. And third, my question was, why weren't the two derelict vehicles that are on site under conservation jurisdiction not depicted on the plan? I looked very hard at trying to approve this as it was submitted and was ready to recommend a standard order of conditions with several additional conditions added. I listed those to the commission and to Alphonse. However, I still have an uncertainty. And my uncertainty is this: we're being asked to approve a plan that does not show all of the activities and all of the existing conditions, that being the derelict vehicles. How are these going to be pulled out? This is not just taking a derelict vehicle off a driveway. This is taking a derelict vehicle or two derelict vehicles off of lands that are in our jurisdiction. These vehicles are in terrible condition. Pulling them the wrong way, they could collapse. And if there are any fluids on board, could be released. We have no information as to how this is going to take place. It needs to take place. It's a necessary activity, but we need to have some level of assurance that there's not going to be an episode into the adjacent stream, into the adjacent groundwaters, into the adjacent wetlands. I'm a little uneasy with the lack of detail as to what the soils that underlie these vehicles are. The Sunbeam truck, the second one to the west, or to the southwest of the proposed house and to the south of the existing structure, is buried in overgrowth. I don't know how anybody got under there to take a look and see where there was staining. Was there gasoline? Was there oil? Was there antifreeze? Any kind of fluids that truck may have had? Might have been a little easier to do it under the derelict RV, in that it is got an area that is open that one could climb under, but that's not the way we look for anything that would be considered a hazardous waste, a special waste, or oils and grease in soils. So I have outlined in the conditions that I would like some sampling taken place in accordance with state protocols to assure us that there is no waste in the soil near the surface waters, near the groundwater, and near the wetlands, because as charged under both the Act and under our bylaw, we are to protect water quality to the greatest extent possible. I don't think this filing is to the point where I have any confidence in saying, yeah, it's going to all work out. It might, but there's not enough evidence to convince me that it will. So staff's recommendation at this point is to continue this public hearing to afford the applicant time to revise the plan accordingly and to provide some answers to the staff questions referenced above as related to the asbestos and as related to any potential soil contamination that may have occurred because of the derelict vehicles.
Mark, thank you for your comments. Does any commissioner have any questions? I have a few. And I think, Mark, your recommendation for a continuance and for some revisions is well taken. But some of my notes, looking at them first, I understand Board of Health's concerns regarding asbestos, but I think we don't have jurisdiction over that. So we can just, we could put a condition in that there shall be no demolition without approval from Board of Health as well. Okay, so no action to raise until Board of Health is approved. So I think that's how I would recommend handling that. We don't want to get into asbestos remediation issues. That's well past our jurisdiction. The second thing,
Well, if I could just jump in, I agree that purely removing asbestos is one thing, but if it's removed incorrectly, without appropriate protocols, it is a threat to our jurisdictional resources. Asbestos can be a water.
that's why I'm suggesting the condition that there shall be no raising of any structure until you've got the approval.
Well, that is, I'm comfortable with that.
Right.
That was my condition. I don't want to evaluate the asbestos because it's out of my league too, but I want to know that it's okay with public health moving forward. So
That's going to be our condition. And then it's up to them to get that approval from Board of Health before they take anything down. And I agree with you. Once it's released into the ground or into the water in our jurisdiction, then it is our jurisdiction and it's their problem. So it would not only be recommended as a result of Board of Health saying we need to have this done in our condition, but if I'm the applicant, I'd want it done the right way so I don't have any issues with trying to clean up a contamination that I may have unwittingly unleashed, because the costs will be multiples of what it would have cost to do it right to begin with.
If I may, for this one, the applicant has performed an asbestos testing and submitted to the town. So we're already working on that one.
Okay, well, I mean, it would be an issue for us in the sense that we won't, our approval to demolish is going to be, if we approve it, strictly speaking, from our jurisdiction, but one of our conditions can be you're not to do anything until you get the approval from the Board of Health on that asbestos removal. Okay, so if you've already started the ball rolling, that's great. That means you're already partially on your way towards that approval.
Yes.
And then, as far as the abandoned vehicles, Mark, I think you're right on point. Those vehicles must be shown on the plan. And we also, I think, must have detail as to how those vehicles are going to be removed, what tests are going to be done. Because I think you're going to have to, if I'm hearing you correctly, Mark, they're going to have to get somebody in who's not just a wrecker, but somebody like Frank Corp or somebody to be there when they move these things. So
that's their decision. I mean, I don't want to tell them who's to do the work, but it's just not putting them up on a flatbed and hauling them out. Okay.
No. Listen, I'm not. I just use that as an example. I think we're going to have to use the generals. So somebody with a company with environmental licensing or whatever, so they can do this. Because just as you want to get the Board of Health's approval on asbestos removal, this is the same thing. Except apparently, Board of Health doesn't have a regulation for this. Apparently, maybe they do. And maybe we want to check on that and make sure we get it conditioned correctly. But if I'm hearing correctly, these two vehicles, which don't show up on this plan, but should and must in order for us to approve, we have to have a plan that's going to remove these vehicles in an environmentally safe way. Because if there is contamination, then we have a bigger problem here. We have a remediation problem. And what we're trying to do, if that's already existing, it's a problem that has to be remedied. But when you start moving these, if they're in the condition as described, if they're moved improperly or without environmental folks at the ready to try and contain any hazardous materials, we have a ecological catastrophe here, which will cost a fortune, probably more than the property's worth to remediate, to be candid with you.
No, we agree. We agree 100%, and that's why prior to any removal of any vehicles, all the fluids, any fluids that remain in the vehicles, will be
I
siphoned
hear what
out.
you're saying, but that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I want to know that who's doing all this has
Correct.
the right licenses to handle it, because if any comes out, they've got to be able to clean it immediately. Okay? There has to be an immediate response. I don't want to have Joe's Towing come down and take the oil pan lug thing off and put it into a gallon and then say it's done. I mean, they don't know what they're doing when it comes to environmental. They know cars, they know trucks, but I want to have somebody who's got the ability to assess that what they're doing is going to be environmentally safe. And if there happens to be something that goes wrong, they can be on the spot to limit the damage. I mean, that's what I want.
Understood.
So it's not an issue of just saying, well, we've got somebody who's going to drain it, or we got someone's going to tow it out of there. So that's my point. So I think, Mark, maybe we put our thinking caps on and say, well, what is that person? I'm not suggesting the name of a company that has those credentials, but there's got to be folks that have those credentials, and they can select from that. Because
Well, I think to be
that's what I'm
safer, it's got to be done in accordance with, the state regulations. The state regulates this stuff far more than the towns do. And there are licensed, environmental companies listed that have the state certifications. This has got to be all done in conformance with, state regulations.
Oh, I believe me, I'm totally aware of that, and I agree with you. But that's why you want somebody with the right pedigree and licensure to make sure that happens. I don't want to try to dictate what those requirements are, because that's not us. But
Well, here was the condition that I wrote for when I was thinking about if we were going to condition this. Upon removal of the derelict vehicles from the site and prior to any demolition or construction activities taking place, the applicant shall present soil quality results to the Conservation Commission to indicate that there have been no fluid releases from the 2 derelict vehicles stored on site within both the riverfront area and the 100-foot buffer zone. This is also to assure that there have been no releases into wetlands, jurisdictional, surface, and groundwater. All sampling and analyses shall conform to state hazardous or special waste requirements. If soils are found to be problematic, then they must be handled and removed in conformance with state requirements. And we could also add the vehicles into that.
I think so, and I think though that the only predicate is if the state regulations regarding that don't. I want to know we have somebody who's on site properly licensed.
Yeah.
Okay. To make sure that the state regulations for removal of hazardous materials or assessment of whether we have hazardous materials to remove is there. I don't want to find out after the fact that, oops, now we got a problem. And I don't think the applicant should want that either, because it'll cost the applicant tremendously more money to remediate an oil or volatile organic contamination or asbestos contamination than to make sure that it's done properly. Those are short dollars compared to the remediation costs.
No, we agree.
So that's so Mark, we're not saying we're not saying different things.
Yeah,
We're saying
I took some of the key words you said. I can recraft that when the time comes.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm totally in agreement though. So, so Alphonse, there's a little bit more refinement here on that plan before we can actually vote on it. And I think you might want to have you and your client just look and see who you can engage to be your hazardous material consultant. I know they've got different types. And it's like there's certain ones that's specific for asbestos, right? And you have to have people go through the building and determine if there is, and then if there is, how you're going to remove it, and blah blah blah. And there's all these things that have to happen. So we want something similar for these vehicles, because the last thing we want, or the applicant would want, is to have a contamination created by the removal of the vehicles, improper removal of the vehicles. It just would be a nightmare that you want to avoid at all costs. And so I don't know how long a period of time you'll need, but our next meeting is March 11th. If you could be ready for then, we could certainly entertain a continuance request until then. If you're not,
Yes, please.
okay. Okay. So I've been speaking a lot here and I didn't want to monopolize. So any of the commissioners that want to speak, please let me know. Is there anyone in the audience this evening that's here on this request and would like to be heard tonight? I don't see anybody. So, commissioners, I will entertain a motion to continue this public hearing until Tuesday, March 11, 2025 at 7 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
We have a second motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
James?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. And if you have questions, please contact Mark or Eduardo so that you actually have something in. Oh, Mark, I'd like you to tell them when that revised plan has to be in order for us to act on it. For the
Revised
March
plan
11th.
has to be in the Thursday before the 11th. The date, what is that, the 6th?
I
I
think
don't
you're
have a
right.
calendar in front of me, but I think it's the
Neither do
6th. It's the 11th, it's the Thursday before.
It is the 6th, yes.
It is the 6th, okay.
So make sure that that revised plan is in the office by that date, because if it comes in the following day, it's too late for us to actually vote on your request for that Tuesday meeting. It'll be continued again. Okay.
Understood. Yep.
Alphonse, that's anything you're adding. If you're adding a narrative or a
Correct.
method, anything, all that has to be in on by the 6th.
Understood.
Okay?
Okay. So, and we already voted on a continuance, right? I lost track.
Right. Yes.
Okay. So that concludes our public
No,
hearing.
we got one more.
Oh, yeah, we do. You're right. I was anticipating, but that's a public hearing on DEP 15-2775 NOI 25-11 on the notice of intent from Michael and Ferry and Jessica Schmitz to construct a swimming pool, tennis court, and driveway at existing dwelling. It's on land described as map 113, lots 33 and 35-1. It's otherwise known as 6 and 8 High Street. Entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Megan? I guess that's yes, right? Jane? And
Yes.
and my vote is yes. And we have that motion passes unanimously. Mark, this applicant also requested a continuance?
Yes, they requested a continuance until March 11th, 2025.
Okay, commissioners, any questions? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to continue this hearing on the NOI of the Schmids until March 11, 2025 at their request.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Seconded motion, roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
James?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. That concludes the public hearings. So now we're going to go on to the items for discussion. And the first one is we have a bill of $3,500 to Reposo Drainage Review. It's file number 15-2757. And I'll entertain a motion to pay that bill to Reposo Drainage Review. We have a motion. Second motion. So roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
yes,
James?
Yes.
My vote is yes. That motion passes unanimously. Mark, you want to take over the items for discussion and any enforcement issues?
Yeah, we don't have any enforcement issues I want to report on just yet. We're still in the process of dealing with a couple. We've sent letters out, but we will follow up with presentations on each at the next meeting or so. The only item of discussion we have is that I was contacted by Select Board member David Tattlebaum. David is in the process of forming a water quality committee made up of board and commission members, not technical people like myself. And he is looking for a member of the Conservation Commission to be the Conservation Commission member / liaison to that committee, in which I don't know what the schedule of meetings are. This is something that is, the water quality issues in and around Dartmouth have become a little heated, and we're trying to, we've been a little bit behind the 8 ball on it, and we're trying to get ahead of it. So David is looking for a volunteer from the commission to sit on the committee.
Well, let me say, does any one of the commissioners want to be on this water quality committee? Well, you're laughing, but there's someone who might really say, hey, that was exactly what I was looking for. It's much easier to have somebody do something they really want to do than to sort of appoint them reluctantly.
I suspect that this committee is an incredibly important committee, and I'm going to get a headache if nobody volunteers, because I'll be getting calls from the 3rd floor. like
I'm not
every-
going to have that happen. Look, if nobody else wants that wonderful position, I'll take it. Okay. I'm not going to appoint somebody to something they don't want to do. I
Oh, I
just won't
understand
do
that,
that.
but we need a volunteer, and it sounds like you're it.
Well, does
I
it
think-
need to be the same person? Because I mean,
Pardon?
I just said, like, I would just need to know the schedule before I commit to anything.
I can't tell you
Yeah.
that. I asked the
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
There'll be evening meetings probably.
Yeah,
That's my suspicion.
yeah.
Early evening meetings. I can't tell you.
Yeah.
I would disclose that if I knew it.
I mean, if you find out when things are, maybe I can join or something along those lines, or maybe I don't know if it needs to be the same person every week or whatever.
Yeah, it has to be one person.
One person. Gotcha.
James, but I tell you what, I mean, I'm willing to put my name in, and then what'll happen is once we know what it is, if you think that's something you want to do, James,
Yeah,
we'll just switch it up. Okay.
yeah. Sounds
Okay.
good.
They want to know we're going to have somebody from conservation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I understand. I mean, I'm not doing it because it's like, this is what Mike Kehoe really wants to do.
Yeah.
But and I don't
Because you're
even
a
know
nice
what
guy,
they'll
Mike.
do. But I just don't want to have. I understand this is important to the select,
Yeah.
board, and I don't
I
want
mean,
them.
just for the newer members, there are certain committees in town that require the presence of board and commission members. I know Richard and Nat sit on the Soils Board. There is a Waterways Committee, which I don't think we have a member on right now.
We don't right now.
That was Patty. Patty
That was-
Swerduck was on it. And I'm not sure who sits for us for CPC.
Well, the last person I knew sitting for us for CPC was Kyle.
Kyle, and we don't have any, so we have vacant seats, that on a couple of committees at least that need to be filled, and they will
Do you
be
have schedules
chirping
for
when they get started. They will be chirping to me, and I will be chirping to you, because they don't want me, they want you.
Do they don't have schedules either?
They do. The
CPC does, Waterways does. I don't know what Waterways is, but I could get that.
Yeah, if you
It's
find those
Waterways
out,
this
shoot me an
afternoon.
email and I'll take a gander at those.
Yeah, and I would be interested too, Mark. I'll have a side conversation with you. It just depends on scheduling specifically, but I'll talk to you on the side.
And I can tell you this much, for CPC, we moved our meetings to when we have them in order to accommodate CPC, because their meetings, I think, they weren't
First
every month,
Tuesdays.
they were like the first Tuesday.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
And so we moved our meetings to the second and fourth Tuesdays so that the member from the Conservation Commission could actually go to the meeting and
Yeah.
not have to bolt out of there early or miss
Yeah,
out.
I mean,
on-
if it's like a once a month thing, I can toss my hat.
I
in the
think
ring.
it is. I
Yeah.
really, and I think the heavy lifting really comes when they have to dole money out.
Yeah.
That's when the
Well,
heavy lifting.
I think what happens is the heavy lifting is typically around town meetings, if they have an agenda item.
Yeah.
CPC always has agenda items at the spring town meetings, so you could assume that April and May would probably be a little heavier than, let's say, January or February.
Yeah.
If in fact they even meet those months. Waterways, I don't know what Waterways is actually doing right now in terms of meeting or not. Soil Board, Richard, how often does Soil Board meet?
Twice a year.
Twice a year.
You
So
got
I
the
mean,
good one.
they vary.
You know what? I'm going to call Patty tomorrow, find out what Waterways is doing, if they need a Conservation Commission member on it, and when they're meeting, et cetera. And then I can report back and everyone will have that as well.
Perfect.
And I was actually on CPC, and then, so I got to tell you, I think when I was on it, the biggest problem was we had the conflict on our meeting dates being the same.
Yeah.
And it wasn't as big a deal until I became the chair, but it was well-run meeting. They're interesting things. It's basically how they spend the money that they get from the state and I think it's the
They
fee.
take a percentage out of the property taxes.
Yes. So they
Yeah.
get that and they get to spend it on certain things. And some of the projects, quite frankly, are very interesting, and there are usually some issues. Not usually, but I shouldn't say that. But there are occasionally some issues relative to whether the project actually qualifies. So there's a lot of give and take. I found it actually interesting, except it was a conflict for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, relative to CPC, the qualifications are either it has to be a project of conservation, open space, historic preservation, or recreational open space. And there's also, I think, affordable housing also fits into that.
It
There are
does.
like 4 categories of projects that comply with the framework requirements of CPC
Mhm.
for funding. And then it's a question of what's more important. Typically, you don't get a lot of historic applications, but every now and then you do. Conservation open space is generally a popular one, and I suspect that housing will become more and more of an issue as we move along,
Yeah.
as time goes on, given the state of affairs.
Mark, let me ask you a question if I could, please.
I'll give it a
When do you have
shot.
to inform this individual as to who will be the conservation representative on water quality? When do you have to report back to him?
I don't have a drop dead date. He was asking me if I knew of somebody
Well-
last week. I said, I don't. I will ask the commission on Tuesday night. He said,
Well,
okay.
I think it may be beneficial to all of us and to him if he could supply us with the dates. So then when a decision is made by the board, it's dispositive as to who it will be and not, we won't be all over the place because of their conflicts. So
I can tell you he doesn't have that information right now.
well, then,
Yeah, all I wanted to do, Richard, just so you know, my volunteerism was so that Mark could say, okay, Keo will do it. And then we get the information and I'll pass it on to James. And if it's something that James can fit into his schedule, then we're going to do a swap. What I wanted to do is avoid Mark having to keep on going back and forth with the select board,
that's,
who
yeah.
our representative will be.
you saw where I was coming from.
I do indeed. And it was actually more efficient to do it your way, except I'm trying to be expedient here so Mark doesn't have to deal with it. And I'm willing, as long as it isn't a conflict for me, I mean, I'll do it if it's a conflict for you, James. So I'm not expecting that you have to do it. I'm just a placeholder. But if it's
Yeah.
something you want to do and it fits in, I'm happy to step aside.
Yeah. So
Mark, we have you back.
We got you.
Yep. I don't, I mean,
James,
I don't see anybody behind me. I'm sorry. You got my back, where are you?
we're way behind you. You
You're
can't
way
see us.
behind.
Oh, boy.
That's
right,
all I
well,
have.
that- I have nothing to add to the discussion. So if no one else has anything they want to add, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
second,
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Richard,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Megan,
Yes.
James.
yes.
My vote is yes. Meeting adjourned.